She once laughed to her friends, "I'd never let him meet my family. He's too embarrassing." I heard it from the next room. I didn't argue, I just waited. That weekend, she learned what embarrassing really felt like. You never think it's gonna be you. You read these stories online and you think, no way, people aren't really like that. You assume you'd see the signs. You assume you'd know. I'm here to tell you that you can be staring right at it, living right in it, and have absolutely no idea until the floor gives out from under you. For me, the floor gave out on a Tuesday night. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Matt. I'm 38. I own a landscaping and custom outdoor construction company. I started it with a rusty pickup and a secondhand lawnmower when I was 22. Now I have 3 crews, a fleet of trucks, and we build everything from high-end patios to elaborate water features. I'm not a fancy guy. My hands are calloused, and I've usually got a bit of dirt under my fingernails no matter how hard I scrub. But I'm proud of what I've built. It's real. It's mine. For the last 4 years, my life has revolved around Amelia. She's 32, beautiful, smart, and works in public relations. We met through a mutual friend, and I fell for her hard. She was everything I thought I wasn't. Polished, sophisticated, she knew which wine to order and which fork to use. I thought she balanced me out. I thought we were a team. We got engaged 6 months ago. She was the one who insisted we both get engagement rings. She'd read an article about how it was a modern symbol of equality in a partnership. It felt a little strange to me. It's not a common thing for guys in the US, but it was important to her. She said it showed the world we were a unit, equally committed. So I wore the simple platinum band she and her friends helped her pick out, and I felt proud. The diamond I bought for her was another story. It was classic, elegant, and cost more than my first truck. I didn't care. I wanted her to have the best. The issue, if you could call it that, was always our backgrounds. I grew up in a normal middle-class family. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a teacher's aide. We were happy. Amelia's family, on the other hand, was what you'd call old money. Her father is a surgeon, her mother runs a charity foundation. They live in a different world, a world of country clubs, galas, and summer homes. I had met her parents a handful of times. They were always polite, but there was a distance. A kind of polite, clinical curiosity, like they were examining a strange new species of plant I'd brought into their garden. I was never invited to their big family gatherings or holiday events. Amelia always had a reason. "Oh, it's just a boring family thing, you'd be miserable." Or, "My aunt is visiting, and she can be a lot. I want to protect you from that." I believed her. I thought she was being considerate. I thought she was shielding me from their judgment. I was a fool. The moment of clarity came last Tuesday. Amelia was having her 2 best friends, Qley and Isabella, over for drinks. They were her bridesmaids. I was in my home office, which is right next to the living room, finishing up some invoices. The walls are not thick. They had a couple of bottles of wine, and their voices started getting louder, their laughter sharper. I was trying to tune them out when I heard Qley ask, "So, is your mom's 60th birthday party this weekend still the big family debut for Matt?" There was a pause, and then I heard Amelia laugh. It wasn't her normal, happy laugh. It was a sharp, dismissive sound. "God, no," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Can you imagine? I'd never let him meet my extended family. He's too embarrassing." The words hit me like a physical blow. I literally stopped breathing. "Embarrassing?" "Me," Isabella chimed in, her voice syrupy and fake. "You have to, sweetie. You can't keep him hidden forever. What would he even talk about with your Uncle Robert? Mulch?" They all burst out laughing. It felt like they were in the room with me, pointing and laughing right in my face. I know, Amelia said, catching her breath. "I'm working out a plan. The goal is to get the wedding over with, lock him down, and then train him. A little at a time. He's a good provider. You just have to sand down the rough edges." "Or trade up," Qley said, and they laughed again. I didn't hear anything after that. A roaring sound filled my ears. All the air had been sucked out of the room. I wasn't her partner. I was a project, a fixer-upper, a secret to be managed. The man she was going to marry was too embarrassing to meet her family. I didn't storm out. I didn't confront them. I just sat there in the dark, my hands resting on my keyboard, and something inside me shifted. The hurt was there, a deep, crushing weight. But underneath it, something else was forming. Something cold, hard, and clear. She had just handed me a blueprint of how she saw me, our relationship, and our future. She thought I was a simple man. She was about to find out how wrong she was. I waited until I heard them leave, then I closed my laptop and started making a plan of my own. She wanted to be embarrassed? Fine. I would give her an experience she would never forget. Update 1. The 24 hours after I overheard that conversation were the longest of my life. I went through the motions. Amelia came into the office later that night, kissed me on the head, and said she was going to bed. She didn't notice the look in my eyes. She didn't notice that the man she was saying goodnight to was not the same man who had been sitting there 2 hours earlier. My plan needed to be precise. It couldn't be emotional or messy. It had to be a series of logical, unavoidable consequences. She saw me as a simple landscaper, a man who worked with his hands. She forgot that my job is to literally reshape the earth, to see a barren patch of dirt and envision a finished project. I was about to apply that same skill set to my life. The first thing I did was on Wednesday morning. I called my lawyer. I explained the situation, told him what I'd overheard. I wanted to know my legal standing. We lived in my house, which I owned outright before I met her. Her name was not on the deed. We had a joint savings account for the wedding, but most of our other finances were separate. He confirmed that my house was my sole property. He advised me to move 50% of the funds from the joint wedding account into a new personal account immediately to protect my half. I did it from my banking app before we even hung up the phone. Next, I did some digging. Her mother's 60th birthday party. She had told me it was a small family dinner. A quick search online revealed the truth. It was a massive, catered event at a prestigious local art gallery. There was a guest list that read like a who's who of the local social scene. This wasn't just a party, it was a statement, and she was planning on attending it alone, leaving her embarrassing fiancé at home. The anger was a clean, cold fuel now. I spent the rest of the day setting the stage. I called a high-end car service, one that uses the kind of black town cars you see in movies. I booked one for Friday afternoon. I called a premium moving and storage company and scheduled them for Friday morning. I told them I needed a team to pack up the contents of 2 rooms and a bathroom and move them to a climate-controlled storage unit. I paid for the first 3 months in advance. On Thursday, I put my plan into motion with Amelia. I came home from work with a bouquet of her favorite flowers. I told her I had a surprise for her. I know we've been so stressed with the wedding planning. I said, putting on the performance of a lifetime. And I know your mom's party is this weekend. I want to do something special for us. I've booked a surprise romantic getaway, just the 2 of us. We'll leave Friday afternoon and come back Sunday morning, just in time for you to see your mom on her actual birthday. Her eyes lit up. This was the language she understood. Luxury, spontaneity, grand gestures. Oh my God, Matt, where are we going? It's a surprise, I said, smiling. Just pack an overnight bag with something nice to wear for dinner on Friday night. I'm handling everything. She was thrilled. She spent the next hour texting her friends, bragging about the surprise. I could practically hear Qley and Isabella squealing through the phone. The simple man was learning. He was finally getting it right. On Friday morning, I took the day off work. I told Amelia I had some errands to run to get ready for our trip. As soon as she left for her office, the moving company arrived. They were incredible, professional, efficient, and discreet. In 3 hours, every single item that belonged to Amelia was gone from my house. Her clothes from the closet, her products from the bathroom, the art she'd hung on the walls, the ridiculous collection of throw pillows on the couch. They packed it all with meticulous care. When they were done, they handed me a key to the storage unit and an inventory list. The house was mine again. It was quiet. It was clean. Then, I changed the locks. All of them. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, the black town car pulled into my driveway. Amelia arrived home a few minutes later, buzzing with excitement, carrying her perfectly packed overnight bag. Her friends, Qley and Isabella, were with her. They had apparently decided to come over to see her off and get all the details. They were sitting on my couch, sipping champagne they had brought, when I walked in. "The car is here," I announced with a smile. Amelia jumped up and hugged me. I'm so excited. Where are you taking me? Her friends were watching, their eyes gleaming. This was the kind of story they loved. I walked her to the front door, carrying her bag. The driver, a professional in a black suit, was holding the rear door open. Have an amazing time, I said, handing her the bag. She looked confused. Aren't you coming? No, I said, my smile never wavering. This is for you. I leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. It's time you met your family. Her confusion deepened. Qley and Isabella were now standing in the doorway, their smiles faltering. I handed the driver an envelope. Then I handed Amelia a second envelope, a thick, expensive one with her name written on it. This should explain everything, I said. Have a safe trip. I turned around, walked back into my house, and closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I could hear their confused voices outside. I walked to the living room window and watched as the driver, following his instructions, closed the door and got into the car. Amelia stood there for a moment, looking at the envelope in her hand, then at my closed door. Then she got into the car. Qley and Isabella were left standing in my driveway, looking completely bewildered as the car pulled away. The first part of my plan was complete. Update 2. The silence in the house after that black car pulled away was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Qley and Isabella stood in my driveway for another 5 minutes, calling Amelia's phone, then mine. I didn't answer. Eventually, they got in their car and left, probably to start a frantic group chat titled, "What Just Happened?" I poured myself a whiskey and sat down to wait. I knew the real storm wouldn't hit for at least another hour. Let me tell you what was in those 2 envelopes. The one I gave the driver contained his instructions and a generous tip. His destination was the art gallery where Amelia's mother's party was being held. His instructions were to drop Amelia off directly at the main entrance, hand her a final small envelope from the glove compartment, and then leave immediately. The envelope I gave Amelia contained a multi-page letter. I had spent 2 days writing it. It was calm, rational, and brutal. It started with her own words, quoted verbatim. I'd never let him meet my extended family. He's too embarrassing. I explained that I had overheard her conversation with her friends. I explained that I now understood my role in her life. A provider to be kept hidden, a project to be trained after the wedding. I told her that I was saving her the trouble of hiding me any longer. I was officially removing myself from her life so she could be with her family, the people she wasn't ashamed of. I detailed the cancellation of our engagement. I informed her that her belongings were now in a secure storage unit and the key was in the small envelope the driver would give her upon arrival. I told her the locks on my house were changed and that she was no longer welcome there. I ended the letter by saying that I wished her the best in finding a partner she wasn't embarrassed by. The second part of the plan was already in motion. While she was in that car reading that letter, an insured courier was on his way to her father's office. The package contained both engagement rings, the one I had bought for her and the one she had insisted I wear as a symbol of our equal commitment. It also contained a short, formal note from me. Dr. Anderson, I am returning these to you. It appears the commitment they were meant to symbolize was not shared. Amelia has made her choice, and I am respecting it. I am sorry for how this may affect your family. Sincerely, Matt. The timing was everything. She would be arriving at that party, reeling from the letter, just as her father was receiving a package that confirmed every word of it. She would have no room to lie, no way to spin the narrative. She would be trapped in a cage of her own making, surrounded by the very people she was so desperate to impress. Around 6:30, my phone started to explode. It was a tidal wave of notifications. Dozens of missed calls from Amelia, from her mother, from numbers I didn't recognize. Texts poured in, a chaotic stream of consciousness. How could you do this to me? You left me here. Everyone is staring. My father is furious. You've ruined everything. Let me in the house right now, you psycho. Please, Matt, it was a joke. I didn't mean it. My life is over. I hope you're happy. Then came the messages from Qley and Isabella. They were vicious. They called me every name in the book. A monster, a gaslighter, a manipulative coward. They accused me of planning this all along, of trapping Amelia. According to them, I was the villain for reacting to her betrayal, while she was the innocent victim of a misunderstanding. I read every single message, I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat there, watching the digital implosion of a life I had thought was mine. The real satisfaction wasn't in her panic. It was in the silence from my end. It was in my refusal to engage in the drama she had created. I had made my move. Now, all I had to do was let the consequences play out. I ordered a pizza, put on a movie, and turned my phone on silent. The next day, I found out what had happened at the party. A friend of mine has a cousin who works for the catering company that was handling the event. The story was already becoming legendary. Amelia had arrived in a black car, dressed for a romantic dinner, and been dropped off alone at the curb. She had stumbled into the gallery in tears, clutching a letter, just as her father was opening a package containing 2 engagement rings. The scene, apparently, was spectacular. Her mother trying to hustle her into a side room. Her father, a man known for his icy composure, turning a shade of purple. The whispers spreading through the crowd like fire. Amelia had wanted to avoid embarrassment. Instead, I had delivered it to her on a silver platter, at the one place in the world she valued most, in front of her family and their entire social circle. On Sunday, the attack shifted. The direct, frantic messages stopped, replaced by a more insidious strategy. The social media campaign began. Vague posts from Qley and Isabella started appearing about toxic men and the hidden abuse in relationships that looked perfect on the outside. Amelia posted a single picture of a single tear rolling down her cheek with the caption, "Sometimes you don't know what you're escaping until you're free. #Survivor." They were trying to rewrite history. They were trying to frame me as an abuser. It was a disgusting, calculated move, and I knew I had to shut it down. But again, not with public drama. With precision. I remembered something. About a month ago, Amelia had been complaining about her phone's storage being full. I had helped her back up all her photos and videos to her laptop. I had a hunch. I went to her old laptop, which she had left behind. It was password protected, but she always used the same password for everything. The name of her childhood pet. I was in within seconds. I went to her voice memos, and there it was. She was one of those people who recorded conversations, a habit I always found strange. She had a recording labeled "Girls' Night Wine." I listened to it. The entire conversation from that Tuesday night was there. Her laughter, her calling me embarrassing, her talk of training me, Isabella's comment about mulch, Qley's suggestion to trade up. It was all there, clear as day. I edited the recording down to the most damning 60-second clip. I didn't post it online, I just sent it to 2 people. First, to Isabella's fiancé, a finance guy I'd met a few times. My message was simple. "Hey Tom, thought you might want to hear what your future wife and her friends talk about when they think no one is listening." Second, I sent it to Amelia's father. My email to him read, "Dr. Anderson, I have no desire to make this a public spectacle. However, Amelia and her friends have started a public campaign to paint me as an abuser. This is a recording of the conversation that led to my decision to end the engagement. This is the truth, in her own words. I will not release this publicly, but I will defend my reputation if I am forced to. I suggest you advise your daughter to stop." The social media posts were deleted within 3 hours. The smear campaign was over before it even began. Checkmate. Final update. It's been 4 months since the night of the party. Life has returned to a quiet, steady rhythm that I hadn't realized I was missing so much. The anger has mostly dissipated, leaving behind a kind of calm resolution. I wanted to write this final update to close the book on this chapter, for myself as much as for anyone who has followed this story. The weeks immediately following the implosion were a strange mix of chaos and silence. After I sent that audio clip, the communication from Amelia and her friends stopped completely. It was like a switch was flipped. The power dynamic had shifted. I had the truth, recorded in her own voice, and they knew it. The threat of that truth going public was enough to enforce a ceasefire. I heard through the grapevine what happened next. Isabella's engagement to Tom is off. Apparently, hearing his fiancée laugh while discussing another man as a project to be trained did not sit well with him. He saw it as a massive red flag about her character and her friends, and he pulled the plug. Qley is still with her husband, but I heard they went through a very rocky period. Her involvement in the smear campaign and the general toxicity of that friend group apparently opened his eyes to a few things. Amelia's life, from what I gather, has been completely upended. She is still living with her parents. Her father, a man who values reputation above all else, was deeply humiliated by the public nature of the breakup. The story of her being dropped off at the party became a piece of local gossip that they couldn't escape. He apparently put her on a strict allowance and demanded she get a job and start paying for her own expenses. The free ride was over. She and I had one final, indirect communication. About 2 months ago, I received a formal letter from a lawyer she had hired. It was a demand for financial compensation. It was an absurd document, claiming she was entitled to a portion of my business's value due to her emotional and domestic support during our relationship. It was a desperate, last-ditch attempt to get money out of me. My lawyer's response was short and brutal. It included a bill for half of all the non-refundable wedding deposits, which totaled over $40,000. It also included a detailed accounting of every major expense I had covered for her during the past year. Car payments, credit card bills, vacations. The letter concluded by stating that if she wished to pursue her claim, we would be happy to meet her in court, where we would also be filing a counterclaim for her share of the wedding losses and other expenses, and where the audio recording of her stating her intentions would be submitted as evidence of her fraudulent intent in the relationship. We never heard from her lawyer again. The most satisfying part of all of this hasn't been the drama or the fallout. It has been the rediscovery of my own life. I've thrown myself back into my business, landing 2 of the biggest contracts of my career. I've reconnected with old friends I had neglected because Amelia didn't approve of them. I've spent weekends hiking and fishing, things she always called dirty and harassing. I'm dating again. Nothing serious, but I met a woman who is a veterinarian. She's smart, she's funny, and when I told her what I do for a living, she said, "That's amazing. You create beautiful things out of nothing." She didn't see dirt under my fingernails. She saw creation. The difference was staggering. Last weekend I saw Amelia. I was at a coffee shop with my laptop, going over some designs. She walked in with her mother. She didn't see me at first. She looked diminished. The polished confidence was gone, replaced by a kind of weary resignation. Her mother was talking to her in a low, stern voice, and Amelia was just nodding, staring at the floor. Then she looked up and our eyes met. There was a flicker of panic in her face, then shame. She quickly looked away and hurried out of the coffee shop, leaving her mother standing there. In that moment, I didn't feel anger or triumph. I felt a profound sense of pity. She had been so terrified of being embarrassed by me that she had become the architect of her own humiliation. Her greatest fear was people thinking she had settled for someone beneath her. Now she had nothing. Her friends, her fiancé, her reputation, all gone. All because she couldn't see the value in a man who loved her for who she was, not who she could be molded into.